We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
I may not be a millionaire. I may not have a brand new Frigidaire. My clothes ain't all fancy, and my car ain't brand new. But there is joy in my
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality broadcasting show with a touch of recovery, a reality radio show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant. Who says it?
I'm joined here by my co-host and recording artist, Lolita Robinson.
How are you? It's good to see you. You've had a week off, huh?
A whole week off.
Oh my gosh, I wish it was a fun one for me, but that's okay.
I want to thank everybody out there who's listening and viewing and has supported us throughout this year of Joy in My House. I hope that you're able to share the joy that we have in our house, and I'm hoping that we also get to share in the joy that you have in your house. So I want you to engage with us. I want you to find us on Facebook /Joy in My House. I want you to find us on Twitter /Joy in My House, or you can find us on the LA Talk Live network right here. And there's an array of shows here, over 40 shows here.
That's it. I'm glad that we're giving them a little shout out too. We're a family, even though we don't get to see everybody every night. Sometimes people come in and get to meet them, and yeah.
And I do want to give my condolences. Last week, one of our radio casters here on the show passed away.
Who?
I got an email sent by Richard or by Van.
Van who?
Yes, one of our shows. Oh my goodness, he caught me off guard.
Oh, okay, that's all right. That's okay.
Talk Up Your Biz was the.
Wow.
Was the name of the show?
He was the one. He was
she,
the one.
She.
It was a
Oh,
young
it was a
lady.
she.
Young lady. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So we want to send our condolences out to the family. I hope that that God does give them a little bit of
really.
peace. It's
Yeah,
always
a lot
difficult.
of peace during these
And
times.
our prayers go out also to the Philippines.
Oh yes, you're right. Yeah, there's a lot of people who have been impacted by that. It's just amazing. So yeah, I'm glad you're touching on that.
Because we all go through it.
Yeah,
In
we
our
do.
own way, in our
Yeah.
own homes. We all have our struggles and challenges. And hopefully this show, Joy in My House, gives you a little bit of hope and inspiration, especially through our guests, especially our special guest today.
I'm so somebody very special to both of us.
Yes,
We've been in the
yes.
trenches together. All of us have. We really have. Trying to find joy in the midst of. I haven't had a lot of joy this week. I've been in a lot of trouble with the Lord. Just not paying attention to stuff. I got my car towed because I, wasn't paying attention. I went back to see it. It was clear. It was a little tow sign there, and I get so preoccupied. And I let something happen with my taxes that, had I cleared it up, it was only $20, but it cost me a lot from being slackered. You know what I mean? So,
And it's difficult to walk this path that we claim to have and
that's
to be
right.
diligent.
Yes, be diligent. He cleans up our stuff. So
He really does. And once you start walking this path, he also walks with you.
Yes.
And that's what I've come to
Yeah.
figure out through some of the big challenges in my life.
Yeah, I know you've
God
been
has
going through
really
it.
God has really held my hand. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
really
has,
has. And
hasn't he?
gives me peace and comfort, even in my loneliness. Like I said, he brings the right people on board, and I work my program.
that's right.
And I'm overwhelmed with program right now. I do a Monday night step study.
Good
I
for
do my
you.
Tuesday night step study.
and
there's
then you're
Wednesday
in
night.
one. You're in it yourself, right? And then what
Yes.
are you doing Wednesday?
And Wednesday, every other Wednesday, we have Bible study.
Okay, that's right.
And then Friday nights, I do CR
It's a
event
lot.
night.
It's a
And then
lot, yeah.
Sunday, we have church and we have this. But
Well,
I
he
think
knows you. He got to keep you. Okay, he knows. No more Vegas runs, huh?
that's right. That's right. But I do have the peace. I do
Yeah,
have the peace. And I
yeah.
hope that you out there listening and viewing have a little bit of that peace. Because I know it's through working this program and surrendering my life to Christ that
That's
he
right.
gives me that, because there's some hard times. There's
There
some
are.
lonely times.
And like you said, for those of you who have families in the Philippines, the worst thing is not having control.
yes.
I mean, like last night, my son was out in Glendale with people he didn't know. And here, this is just Glendale, and his phone went dead. And I just hate the fact I can't reach him. So I can only imagine my son was in Glendale with these people that are here, and their families are in the Philippines, and the computers are down. And we get to a point where we just have to really trust God. And it's
Yes.
hard.
Oh.
So our hearts go out to you, our prayers.
Yes. So I want you to link up with us. I want you to give us the joy that you have in your house through Facebook /Joy in My House, through Twitter. Yes, /Joy in My House. And our studio line is open. It's 323-743-3100. Feel free to call in with any questions or comments, especially for our guest today. You're not going to want to miss. We have
I'm looking forward to
Pastor
it.
Phil Burgess
That's right.
from Harbor Church in Lomita,
Oh gosh.
and his wife Taryn are going to be on the show today. They have a great testimony. He is
Fantastic testimony. I still consider him my pastor too. They're spiritual parents and sisters because we're the same age, but they're my spiritual covering. I believe that. And Taryn is my prayer partner. We haven't the last year or so. We both have had challenges, but you need that. You need that.
You know, we always talk about, as we had our prayer time before, we talk about, relationships in our lives and how
Right.
God put us on this earth to have relationships, to
That's
love one
right.
another.
Yeah.
And I feel love from them. I know that when we did an event, or you did an event, I just went and supported the event.
That's right.
In Marietta, they welcomed me into their home.
And then they have their friends with us, Josie and John and their
Yes.
baby, and I got a chance to meet them too. So we're excited about today.
We really are. So we want to thank you for being a part of the joy that we have in our house, ladies and gentlemen. Engage with us. Call in if you have any questions or comments.
Okay.
We're going to go to a quick commercial
Before
break.
you go that commercial break, Joelle, her name is Susan Levin.
Okay,
Susan
Susan
Levin.
Levin.
Yes,
Susan
that's who
Levin.
passed away.
Was she
from the-
sick? I mean, maybe you don't want to
Yeah,
give out
yeah.
her
She, as we know, she went in for some type of operation that
Okay.
didn't went well,
Okay.
and she never fully recovered from that
Okay.
that initial operation.
So our heart does. Thanks.
Our prayers go out to
Our
the
prayers go out
family
to the
and-
family.
Yes.
You
And
know,
then
time is short.
recapping our guys.
Really
and then-
quickly, I do want to recap the last 2 weeks. We re-aired last week because we took 1 week off. We
Yeah.
haven't for the whole year.
I
That
know
was our first one.
Yeah, it was.
But we recapped Michael Davis from Life Changing Community Church. He
Mm-hmm.
was very charismatic, very outgoing pastor who has a service at 3:30
Yep.
on Sundays.
Young guy.
So you can visit his website and his church. But great story.
Yeah, he really was, and to see how God is putting him in the area there, and kind of like in Inglewood, all of the ministries that God is bringing up, it wasn't quite what he thought it was going to be either. But the Lord has His plan; He has His way of working in our lives, and so it'll be interesting to hear today, how our pastor Phil, how God used him.
How God used his story.
Yeah.
He was sent to San Quentin.
Well, yeah, don't tell it all.
Woo! I just can't
Don't
help
tell
that.
it
That,
all.
that
Don't tell it all,
is
yeah.
an amazing testimony, amazing story here on Joy in My House, ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen. Pastor Phil Burgess from Harbor Church in Lomita is going to be joining us live here. I want you guys to stay tuned. We're going to be right back. This is Joy in My House.
How can I forget you? Where did the sweetness go, Lord? Have I fallen from your hand? Am I so far from you, Lord? Is my life in your plan? Where can I run when I feel all alone? Do my words truly reach you high on your throne? Where did your presence go, Lord? Have you put
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. I'm joined here by author of Shaped by the Master's Hands, Lolita Robinson, my co-host,
Good to be here, and I'm excited. Can't wait to get this show on the road.
and our in-studio guest, Pastor Phil Burgess from Harbor Church in Lomita.
All right. Glad to be here.
Welcome
Good.
to the show, Pastor. I always like to let the audience and viewers know how we met. I met you actually through Lolita.
Hmm.
Now, Lolita, can you tell us how you guys got introduced to each other?
Well, I want Pastor to tell that story because I was going to CLC, but I don't know how long you had been there. But I just know we kind of grew up together over there, and I don't know where you were in the midst of getting your pastorate, or you were an assistant pastor. So how was that working out, Pastor?
Well, it was after the summer of 97. My wife and I went on staff at Christian Life Church, where you were part of the worship.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I was licensed with my denomination, and then I was ordained. And now Christian Life Church always has a special place in our heart.
That's
and we
right.
appreciated the time with you guys.
That's right, and I had a chance to grow with you and see God call you, because He called you way out of. Wasn't always your heart to be in like Harbor City? Was that always your heart's desire, and the Lord kind of took you in the wilderness?
No, actually, Taryn and I we thought we were heading towards the big island of Hawaii, and God threw us a curveball there.
Okay.
And now we're back where it all started.
And I want to get to that story. I want to definitely get to that story because I think that's very powerful. But let's start with your family of origin. Where did you grow up, Pastor?
I was born in Sacramento, and for the most part, I grew up in the harbor area of Los Angeles, although in the mid-'60s, I lived quite a bit up in farm country where my mom's family's from.
Now, we always like to kind of touch a little bit. Were you raised Christian? How was the family dynamic at home growing up?
Well, the family I grew up in, if you heard the word God or Jesus, it meant somebody was getting ready to get cussed out. So,
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I
That's
didn't grow up in a Christian family.
okay.
No.
Was your father around, or?
My father disappeared when I was about 18. He was a pretty hardcore alcoholic.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and you're now siblings. I know Linda.
Yes, I have a sister born 10 years to the day younger than me,
Okay.
Linda. And then I have a sister, Rhonda. And I have a brother who died of a drug overdose in 1992.
Oh, goodness.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. So you're where you kind of look to as the strong one in the family. Did your mother and your sisters kind of look to you for direction, or
You know
coming
what?
up?
Not really. Being the oldest, my brother pretty much followed me into the things that ended up costing him his life.
Oh, boy.
And so, drugs and all that was just part of the family I grew up in.
Right.
Well, witnessing this dysfunction, did you experience any abuse, anything of that nature?
Yeah, my mother was.
Can you hear good? Are you talking? Is he talking to the mic good? Okay, good.
My mother was a person who had gone through some horrendous things, and it had scarred her through her life, and she was a very violent person.
Oh, wow.
They'd probably say bipolar now. My dad the same way. He was a pretty violent drunk. So yeah, there was a lot of different types of abuse growing up.
So it must have been kind of confusing for you. Was anybody in your family, like teachers or anybody that you could see that God was kind of had his hand in, or were planting seeds, or he just?
Not really.
Okay.
You know what? We were just a wild bunch, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Well, experiencing your childhood, did this lifestyle cause you to start getting in trouble, to start?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if the lifestyle did it, but I think I've been in trouble from day one.
You always had a sense of humor.
I started getting arrested at a really early age, and
Were you stealing or what? Or what kind of things?
stealing, violence, that kind of stuff.
We ask you these questions because we have a large array of different people listening. I think a lot of young people. And I think your story is going to be inspirational, let people know that no matter what your background is or what you get involved in, God can do miracles.
Yes.
So,
Amen. It's we have the opportunity to make choices that will shape our life.
Because I do want to touch on this one incident with the law, because you did get sentenced to San Quentin, Arizona prison, and the sentence was 8 years. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, actually, it was there were two different sentences. In May of 1980, I was arrested for holding some hostages in a robbery that went bad in Torrance.
Wow.
And I got 4 years, and I spent a little over 2.5 years. I got out. I got out in May of '89, or excuse me, May of 1983. But by July of '83, I was on my way back to federal prison because I had, during that time, had robbed several banks.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
I had
And
forgotten
so-
about that. I read your
yeah.
story. You know.
And so I was, the second time I was in for a little more than 6 years. So the total about 9 years.
Well, how does one become a bank robber? I mean, I don't mean to make light of that. Was that something that
Seemed
somebody
like-
that came in?
Seemed like the thing to do at the time.
Well, who was the mastermind? Were these friends who brought you involved in it, or you just needed some
Uh,
extra cash, or?
Well, I was a drug addict. You know,
Okay,
I had
right.
been started using drugs at a real early age. By the time I was 16, I was pumping heroin into my veins, and
Wow.
so I was.
This is a
drug addict.
miracle! Wow. So you were supporting your habit.
Yeah.
Boy, I tell you, you were pretty. You went for the high places. Most people rob homes to go to the banks. That's a real. Wow.
Well, I had done that too, but believe me, there was no sophistication in
No.
my
In your
techniques.
operation.
Your
Yeah.
operation.
Wow.
Boy, you just never know what God can use. I'm sure all of that experience. I'm looking forward to him experiencing that experience, what it was like, but to see how God was preparing you.
Well, I really want to talk about the youth pastor that you met in prison. Let's talk a little bit about the youth pastor there.
Well, back when I was about 13, there was a youth pastor in the Harbor South Bay area that really tried to help me out. This was back in 1970, 71, 72, 73. And, to be honest, he was one of the few people that really seemed to take an interest in me personally. He really tried to help me, but the choices I made took me where I ultimately ended up. But I was about maybe 18 months from being released a second time. And frankly, the people that I associated with, our plans were to get out and start robbing armored cars. But one night, I just remember thinking about this youth pastor and thinking about my life, and just asking God, if this youth pastor is if you're who he said he was, I need that in my life. The joke in our family today is he wouldn't have tried so hard if he knew someday I'd marry his baby sister.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's right. Oh my goodness, I forgot about that. So was this at Harbor Church where he?
Yes.
Okay, so you were in the youth group.
For a few years, and Taryn and I actually, my wife, we went to junior high school together, so she knew me back. She liked the bad boy type.
Oh my God! And wait till she comes
And you
on.
were the bad boy type. Now, he was the one that first introduced you to Christ?
Well, you know what? I couldn't tell you a thing he said back then, but I could tell you that he cared about me personally.
So it was the love that he was
Yeah.
showed and the attention.
Yeah, he would, and he knew the kind of situation I was in. But he would on Saturday come and get me, help me, let me help him clean the church, give me $5, take me to lunch, just check up on me.
That's beautiful.
We've had a lot of testimonies like that, Pastor. We've had quite a few people who've come through here. Who was that who had a friend? He was a drug addict, and his friend was not one, but he went through
Spiro.
it was Spiro, right?
Spiro's testimony had a friend who was not a drug addict
Right.
and went through the 12-step program and did it with him just as a friend.
As a support. We've had a lot of people come in and talk about showing the love of Christ. It wasn't through preaching. It was just through showing up, which is what you're talking about. Your brother-in-law eventually did for you.
Well, I believe when you talk about showing the love of Christ, I believe that each and every one of us have the opportunity to show the love of Christ, to let it be part of our life, not just something we talk about. And when we do that, we're going to see profound changes in people in our family, and people that we really care about. It's more than what we say.
Okay.
There's too many people that use their mouth a lot. It's what people see in us that really matters, I believe.
That's interesting because I wish our pastor was talking about that scripture. Whether it's in Corinthians where it talked about the kingdom of heaven is not talk, it's power.
Yes, I wrote that
And
down
that's
today.
that's the thing that really attracted me to you and to Taryn. You're hands-on with people. you're the kind of a leader who releases people to, you recognize leadership in others and you're not controlling, you allow people to be who they are. You walk alongside a lot of young men and you equip them for the ministry. I mean, I think your ministry's been closest to what I've seen in the community type of setting than in a lot of other meetings just inside the church where people just preaching on the pulpit. You're a hands-on pastor.
Well, we believe that in order for a church to really fulfill that mandate to reach the lost, to be salt and light, it has to be willing to reach into its community, which means more than just talking about it, but actually going and working with people. And we do different things at our church to minister to our community. So.
Oh, you
Well,
better
let's-
get back to San Quentin because that's important.
Let's
yeah.
get back to when you were released from San Quentin. You worked as a custodian at Harbor Church in Lomita.
Well, first I got released, like I said, that was in the
Yeah,
state
kind of
prison
what happened
system.
in the state. I mean, God had to do some shaping in there. I mean, that's a whole, without glorifying that setting, God had to be moving in that prison, was he not?
Well, yeah, because I was involved in different types of prison gangs and that type of activity. There were people that I was in prison with that I grew up with, been in other prisons with. And I really, I wouldn't say liked, but I took the best of the lifestyle that I could in there. But it was more about power than anything else. And the one thing I've learned about prison is once you lose the fear, it's not a hard place to be, and that's the trap of the whole thing. And so when I got out the first time, I knew the day I left I was coming back.
Did it feel like family or home? Can you can understand the people who had that mentality? Is it a sense of community or?
Well, I don't know about that. I didn't care. I wasn't going to do the things to live a normal life.
Okay.
When I got out, I was going to continue to do the things that I had done. And it wasn't until my second time in the federal prison system, after about 5 years, that I began to think, man, there's got to be more in life than this. I was in one prison where, because of affiliations, I had quite a bit of power. And so the lifestyle can be too easy to slip into and to embrace.
Yeah, because I do remember in your story, and I don't know how much you want to, go into the details, but you did. You were kind of feared. You were kind of looked up to behind those walls.
Amazing.
So it's almost impossible for God. I mean, it just shows me how awesome God is to take a life like yours and to turn it around and to be the man of God that you are today with the kind of things that you dealt with. I mean, it's amazing to me. Amazing.
Well, you know what? It's kind of funny is a lot of people would say, Phil, you need to be in prison ministries.
Yeah.
And you know, I've never felt that. I've never felt
Felt that
even the
calling.
inkling. With Taryn and I, what we focused on throughout our life in ministry has been reaching people before they get to
Before,
that point.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's why
Yeah,
we did the
yeah.
Intervision ministry with the camps that we did all those years.
I remember
to
you
reach
did.
Kids, yeah.
Yes, I did.
Well, it's interesting because you were in prison. You were empowered in there because of your position. So when you got let out and you came out, what made you decide to kind of surrender your life or surrender your time even to be a custodian at Harbor Church?
Well,
yeah, what was going on with that?
there were two things that happened in the last several months. I worked in a cable factory. We built harnesses, cables for tanks and jets and stuff like that in prison. There were two people that really shaped me thinking about my life. One was a man named Mr. Strotter who went to prison in 1946. He got out in 1987.
Whoa,
They sent
boy.
him to San Diego because what difference did it make? He didn't know anybody anyway. And he was out for about 6 weeks, and he come back. And I asked him, I said, "Now, what are you doing back here?" And
You were still in
first-
prison at this
yeah.
point. Okay.
And one day we were walking around the yard, and he said, "You know what, Phil? I needed to come back to where I knew how to live, and I want to die here." And the other thing was
Boy.
a group that I had belonged to. We called ourselves a history club, but it was a covering for something else. And there was a young man in the group that I was really close to. He had belonged to a white supremacist terrorist group back in the 80s. And this history club that we had formed in the prison, we did a lot of things like raised funds for an orphanage in Phoenix for Christmas presents and stuff like
Wow.
that. So,
Wow.
so we did it illegally in a lot of ways, but
Okay.
that's what we were doing.
Uh-huh.
And one day we had a coach come in with the pictures of the kids in the of his team that we were supporting. And there was this one little girl, she was a little black girl. Frank just started screaming.
And you
most-
guys were white supremacists, right? I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
bring that up to you, bro.
Yeah, we were.
That's what's so beautiful about our story here. This guy.
So we were a little bit more in a history club, but that's. Frank, he was cussing and yelling about this girl and at the coach, and it just turned me. It just turned my stomach and made me sick.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two incidences that made me start thinking about my life. In my last year, I pretty much stayed to myself. It's not like in the movies, you know.
Right.
People.
It's
there are
not as
people knew-
intense all the time, you know.
Well, no, especially if you already have a reputation and people know you and stuff like that.
Mhm.
You know, it was more like, man, I'd like to get some of what Phil's on because,
Yeah.
you know.
So there was always a call on you for leadership.
Well, the
The
first
enemy took it and wanted to use it for his glory, but there's just such a quietness about you, but there's a strength. So you've always had that.
Yeah, back in the first time I really felt I was going to be called to ministry, I was in Orange County Jail. It was in 1983, or 84. I was in there for something I didn't do,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't prove it because I happened to be robbing a bank that day.
Oh my God.
And so it looked like I was going to prison for something I didn't do. I was in my cell by myself, and I really heard God tell me, Phil, you're not going to go to prison for what you didn't do. You will face what you did do. You'll get 8 years, and when you get out, you'll serve me. And I'm thinking, oh man, I'm not even loaded, and I'm hearing voices. Well, a week later, the FBI show up at the county jail, and they start laying out all these bank surveillance photos, which would prove where I was that day. So the FBI was my main witness. I got found not guilty.
Of that, but you
Yeah.
got found guilty
Yeah,
of all
then
your
the
other
U.S.
beauties.
Marshals come and got me and took me to the federal prison at Terminal Island, where I went to court at that time. And this was the amazing thing is if you look at, I'm on parole for holding a bunch of people at gunpoint and a robbery went bad. I got a history of armed robbery dating back to my early teen years.
Does he look like Clyde Burrow here? I'm like,
And
man, Eric is like, okay, I didn't seen it all.
well, but this is the deal. A guy like that, and he just robbed a half a dozen banks. You don't give that guy 8 years.
Right.
You give him everything you could give
Yeah,
him,
like about 50 maybe.
at least.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you weren't my judge. The judge, my judge's name was Maximum Malcolm.
Wow.
He was on the federal bench in L.A. And Duke Majan was the governor of California and appointed him to the California State Supreme Court. So Ronald Reagan appointed this woman, and I was one of her first cases.
Oh my gosh.
And so, you know what? I got 8 years, just like
Just
you
like the Lord said
yeah.
to you. Yeah.
Went to Lompoc, and you'd think that I'd think, all right, thank you, Lord. But as soon as I got back to the pen, I got right back involved in the crazy stuff, and it wasn't until I got out, and so it's interesting how God takes us on these little journeys. So.
Well, yeah, it is because it doesn't sound like, and I don't know if you're going to take a break or not soon, but
Not yet.
it doesn't sound like it was a whole big road to Damascus experience.
No,
Maybe that came, but it was like little tiny. He worked in very subtle ways. Would you say in your testimony?
yeah, I
Things
was,
that other people couldn't see.
Yeah, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. When I got out, I had only been out a week, and Pastor Bob, who had known me since I was a young kid, he was the pastor of the church we pastor now.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me, you want a job? Gave me an alarm code and the Grand Master, and I'm thinking, I just got out of prison, and this guy's giving
me
me
the key.
everything. You
Oh
know?
my goodness.
It was a few weeks after that I felt God telling me to go to school, and I really didn't want to do that. I knew I was street smart. I knew I was pen smart. But
Did
I
you
didn't
go to
think-
high school? Did you have anything like
No,
a GED? You never graduated high school?
Well, here's an interesting story.
Okay.
I dropped out, but when I was in prison, I got caught stealing in the cable factory or the T-shirt factory. So they were going to put me in the kitchen. So I went to school and earned a GED. About 10 years go by. I'm going to go to college. I don't want to go because I don't think I'm, I know I'm
No,
street smart.
I mean, I love you, but you don't appear to be college material. Wow.
Wow.
See how God knows. That's what I'm saying to the outer eye. But see, God knew.
Well, so they asked me, they said, well, where's your high school diploma? I said, well, I don't got a high school diploma. So then they bring up what he got a GED, and oh yeah, I took one in prison years and years ago. So
Well-
I call the prison.
This is great. Go on.
I call the prison, and they tell me, well, we don't have that stuff this long back. It might be archived in Sacramento. So he took my name and number. He calls me a couple days later, and he says, look, after I got off the phone with you, I was moving a filing cabinet, and I found your education file on the floor
Oh,
behind this
boy.
filing cabinet.
Wow.
And I sent a copy of that out to that college. It's Vanguard University.
Vanguard University,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen.
Huge. Vanguard is huge.
I got chills. How God works. How God will open those doors.
Oh my goodness! Look at the smile on your face. See, man looks on the outer appearance, but God sees the heart. I'm just piecing all this together. Your eventual brother-in-law just showed love, and it looks like to me that the pastor showed trust. I think
Yeah.
isn't that important?
Absolutely.
He showed you trust. He gave you the keys, and he took a risk.
And I feel that. See, I can relate to a lot of his story,
Mhm.
especially having the opportunity to have read it the night before. How Lolita trusted me. Her knowing my deepest, darkest secrets was willing to say, let's work together. I want somebody to represent me. I want somebody to go forward. And I was just like, but me, knowing me, she was so faithful and showed me such grace, showed me such love that I wanted to be able to have what she had. So I had to do what she did. And that was a process that started me in surrendering my life over to Christ.
That's
So
beautiful.
I
But that's
can
our,
really,
That's our Savior, though. That's our God. He's a
I
God
can
of
really
He's a
relate.
God of grace, isn't He?
Yeah, you know, I wish there was something that we could all, as believers, come to understand. And that's the influence that we can have on lives. Sometimes we have to lose the religious jargon and all that kind of stuff and talk to, and be real to people. But we can have, and I believe that God's called us all to be an influence wherever we're at, to be salt and light wherever we're at. We're ambassadors, and we can be an influence.
Sure, and you just don't know. I mean, look at this. This is incredible.
I'm going to go down some of your accolades. You were married in 1992 before receiving your your BA from Vanguard. You and your wife earned your master's degree from Vanguard University. Wow. You became a licensed pastor with the Assemblies of God. You're on staff in a church in Long Beach and became ordained and a pastor in Portsville for 7 years, then a church in Marietta for 2.5.
Yeah.
Now, these are just some of the few of the accolades that you have after being released from prison. How God can just turn a
Turn the
life
around
around.
and can see, can see beyond the pain. So would you say that most of the men in prison are in a lot of pain? What would you say about that? Or
Well, you know what? It's obvious that there's something there that, it's funny. Every time I went to a new prison, they made me take these psychological tests, and they'd say, well, obviously, you're antisocial. And I think, well, gosh, man, we're all in prison. Of course we're antisocial. So, pain and all that, you don't really let that stuff out. That's not the type of environment
That you do that,
you
right.
let that stuff out. But yeah, there's something in all of the lives in there that, they're all people, and there's some horrendous stories in there. So, and there's some good stories. There's some great stories of redemption in there too. So.
absolutely.
And we're gonna take a quick commercial break, but right before, we're gonna talk about you meeting your wife.
Oh.
You meeting your wife.
Well, he already knew her his wife.
At
but
Harbor Church. Well, we're gonna go back
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit and backtrack and talk about meeting your wife. Taryn Burgess is here. She's gonna be live as well in our studio and talk about their relation, how they met, and the transformation that God did in their marriage and in their
how
lives.
she did scrape her mother off the ceiling.
This is
Yeah.
Joy in My House, ladies and gentlemen. I want you guys to stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay.
There was a call throughout the land. God was looking for a mighty man. He found a servant so close and so near. Servant said, Lord, please don't look over here. God
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on LATalkLive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
a reality show where nothing is left unsaid,
And no one is insignificant who says it.
exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Barbara Perkins, inviting you to join us every Sunday afternoon at 2:40 for Sisters at the Well Radio, a conversation with women about women. Join us as we share stories about current events, jazz events, business opportunities, health and wellness, entertainment, and so much more. So don't forget to tune in Sundays at 2:40, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, or watch and listen directly at LATalkLive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Ro Williams, and I would like to invite you to join GospelRhythms.com every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our show, GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio. Join us as we celebrate Christians around the world in all genres of entertainment, as well as highlight interest stories on men and women who are making a difference and impacting their community. So don't forget to tune in to GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes under R&B or watch us live on Ustream TV. We are reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio on LATalkLive.com. We're more than just talk. We're heaven's party here on earth.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House, inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery, a reality radio show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who says it.
And I'm joined here by recording artist and author of Shaped by the Master's Hands, Lolita Robinson.
I'm glad to be here and to hear this story again and be encouraged that God is a mighty God.
Yes, he is. And our in-studio guest, Pastor Phil Burgess, and his lovely wife, Taryn Burgess.
Yay!
Hi,
from
it's great
Harvard
to be
Church.
with you.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I do want to touch base because this is an amazing love story, to be honest with you.
Oh, it's a crazy
It
story.
really
It's
is.
wonderful.
Going through all the trials and tribulations that Pastor Phil has gone through, but God really placed somebody in his life that would love him, and till this day still love him. And I wanted to just touch base on Taryn. Give us a little bit of your story. Give us a little bit of where you grew up.
I grew up in Harbor City, a poor area, the youngest of 4 kids. My mom was not supposed to have me because she only had 1 kidney.
Wow.
So she got through the pregnancy and everything went fine, and I was born. There's a 9.5-year gap between my brother and I,
Well, that's a
which
pretty
I
big
like
gap.
to emphasize to him.
Okay, that's
You
okay.
need to remind him.
He's the one who was a youth pastor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he was.
Mm-hmm. At
Yeah.
Harbor Church.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly right. And I got a Cal State scholarship to Long Beach State and worked towards my teaching credential because I really wanted to work with kids. I love that. And while doing that, I started working at the church's school and enjoyed that very much. And
Because I know that you lived across from a little church, Harbor Church.
yes,
But I did want to touch on the passing of your father passing at a tender age of 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, what was that? Yeah.
yeah, my father was killed in a car accident when I was 4, so that left my mom with 3 teenagers and myself. And at the time, we lived in projects across from a little small church called the Harbor Church. And before my mom even started going to church, my brother and sisters would walk me across the street to church.
Oh, so that
That's
started with them first.
Yes.
And who pioneered them? Do you know?
I think it being close and just
They
not
just
really a
went-
whole
yeah.
lot to do. They wanted to, get out of the house and go do something. And Pastor Bob's in-laws, his father-in-law and mother-in-law, were pastors there at the time. And so she gave me piano lessons, and then Pastor Bob came pretty quickly, and the church was small. He baptized me when I was 8 years old.
Oh my goodness,
And I
that's
accepted
amazing.
the Lord. Yeah.
Not knowing you would be the next one day the first lady of the church.
Never imagined it in a million years.
Oh my goodness.
And your brother, uncle, and brother-in-law actually helped rebuild that church to a new church.
Yes, exactly right. They bought land just a couple miles away, and my brother-in-law, and uncle helped build it. And my brother was in charge of the expansion program. And so I got to see the church being built, and I made my first cake for the men of the church who were working there.
That's beautiful. And your brother Richard actually at the time was helping, I like how you said, a troubled youth by
Yes.
the name of Phil.
Yes.
And how old were you at the time when he was?
A couple years younger, so maybe 12.
Oh my goodness.
Around 12. And we had a big backyard, and I just remember him coming and helping my brother mow the backyard, and then my brother would spend time with him, go take him for a burger, and I always considered him like my brother's friend.
Right.
But my mom was his sister's missionette teacher, so we knew the family
Oh wow.
from church.
Oh, interesting.
Had God? Well, you're so young then at 12, so you had no idea
No.
what any of that. You
No,
know.
no idea whatsoever. But I do remember years after that, when I was in the college career group, sitting in the upstairs apartment that we would later live in, the first 5 years of our marriage, writing him a letter in prison. And this was during the time when we were
Wow.
trying to encourage him because he was accused of something that he didn't do.
Was there any romantic? You just felt led of the Holy Spirit just to reach out as a sister in the
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, and you wrote him a letter, and
Yeah.
was that when it all started, or
No, I don't
No?
think so.
Uh-uh. Did
He might
he's
remember the
shaking his
letter.
head. Okay, now, so what was your part in this? Was it love at first letter, or what?
Well, the truth be known is she's always had the hots for me.
I wish you could. Taryn is so quiet and so beautiful, and she just blushes at the stuff this man says. It cracks me up.
All the time.
Now, you know what? I appreciated the letters. Actually, it was 1980 when she'd sent them, and I was in a prison, Susanville, up in Northern California.
Boy, you were.
So I appreciated the letters.
So there were continual letters, just to encourage you.
No, she did it a couple times. And then she must have listened to her mom when she said, "You got to quit writing that boy. He's no good."
Did your mother do that? Did she find out, or what?
She didn't find out at that point. But
Oh man, this is not something a mother would want to hear. No, it's
definitely not. He came home and he started working for the church right away, and I was finishing up teaching kindergarten and transitioning to being the preschool director. So I was packing my room up. It was summertime, and he noticed the boxes that said Miss Day on them, my maiden name, and so he was like, "Are you Richard's sister?
Oh,
You've grown up." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he asked me out right away. Well, I got nervous having known his background, so I said, "Well, we're going to be going on vacation pretty soon, but maybe sometime." And ladies of the church were trying to help him plan this date
Oh, you're
for
kidding.
quite a while.
Well, now, how did that look? What were they doing?
Giving me advice.
And what was some of the advice? 'Cause we have some suiting ladies out there that might need to hear it. What was some gentlemen that need coaching?
Well, they must have thought I needed plenty of coaching because actually there was an equal number of ladies who were trying to tell her to keep away from me.
Oh, I bet. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's really, I've laughed with you about this many times, but it's not something that,
No.
you would want your daughter to do.
And I grew up wanting to follow the rules and obey and, all of that. So my background was very different. So it's rather comical because when I finally did, set a date to go out with him, we went out and it didn't work out as he thought because there was no parking.
Oh, boy.
So our plans changed. He was a little discouraged. So that night I go to the church where I was attending, and there was a speaker talking about the terrible return rate of prisoners.
Oh, you're kidding.
I am not kidding. And so I'm poking my friend, just like freaking out.
Was he with you? Or
no,
you had
he
got- you-
no, he
okay.
wasn't with me at that point.
Oh boy.
So I was very apprehensive and cautious. So we dated for 3 years.
What
I
was your
took-
mother and your family? What did your
She
brother?
did not want me to
What
go
about
out
your
with him.
brother? What was he?
Richard.
Richard. What
Yeah.
did Richard do when you decided to just date his sister? Was he still taking you out for burgers then?
Actually, one of the great joys I had when I got out is I wrote him a letter and telling him that, you know what, it wasn't, it was because of what you did that this is where I'm at now, 17 years later. And his wife said he carried that letter around in his pocket until it was disintegrated. So,
Wow.
but yeah, I think he was all for it. I think only her mom.
Yeah, you can understand that. You can understand that. You know. Wow. So
Well-
what did the Lord do for you? Did
No,
you have a
go ahead.
question? What did the Lord do to kind of speak to your heart, Taryn, to let you know that this is what I want you to do? Because it's kind of like Hosea in a way, isn't it? not to that degree, but marrying somebody who has a different
Right.
background.
Right. Well, I began to see his heart. And as we grew closer, I saw how he was faithful in his relationship with the Lord, faithful in his schooling, in his work, very diligent, very dedicated. And so I was watching that very carefully. And then later on, when it became evident that we were going to become engaged, a dear, dear friend of ours, a lady who I'd worked with for 13 years and become like a second mother to both of us, she was gravely ill, and I asked her, what do you think? Is this, and she said, I really like him. I think it will be fine. I think, he is a great guy in the Lord's ministry, and you guys are good together because you're quiet and he's strong, and you balance each other
You do.
really well.
You know what? You really do. You really do. You really do. It's amazing how
Yeah.
your mother couldn't see that vision, and so God had to use another spiritual mother, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
You really can. It's beautiful story.
But I do want to go over your accolades, because through all this, you also received your degree from Vanguard, got your BA there and your master's. You got your teaching credentials. You're a preschool director and a principal. Later on, became a principal. And through all this, God really was working in both of your lives. Not just I want to say spiritually, but academic wise as well. Knowing that you guys would then do a full circle,
Yeah.
and now you guys are the pastors at the church you guys met.
Yes.
We actually had classes together in graduate school.
When you
Wow.
were together as a couple?
Yeah, we were-
we were
okay.
both on a leadership track, mine in religious organizations and hers in education. So we had some classes
So he
early
was-
on together.
Early on together. So he was planning this, doing this all along.
Well, she
But I
cheated.
She cheated.
She cheated. She cheated off
He's a
you.
real-
Yeah, she cheated.
Never.
He's such a comedian. But I remember watching. Go ahead. No, what were you going to say?
I had always wanted to go to a Christian university, but just could never afford it. So
How
it
did
was
the
a
Lord work that out?
tremendous blessing for me, because through his job at Vanguard, I was able to get my master's at Vanguard
That is
totally
amazing.
free. And that is phenomenal.
So that was after you guys were married,
Right.
Yes.
So God fulfilled that
Yeah.
vision for you after you obeyed
Yeah.
Him and did this. You
Yeah,
know. Well, I had
exactly.
the honor to walk with you guys through the wilderness period, which is, I think, is important. I like to talk to our audience about hard times, about sometimes not recognizing God's plan
Yeah.
when it looks like. I mean, you guys went through a lot. He put you out in. You went to Porterville, which is kind of out there, and I've had a chance to go and meet. But you met amazing people, and then
Yes, we
Marietta.
did.
So, what was that experience like? Because it certainly looked like He was taking you away from anything that was in your heart's desire.
Yeah.
Is that correct, or?
Yeah, going to Porterville wasn't our trip. We were open.
There's a little hotel.
We were open to go wherever God would send us, as long as it was in the greater LA area.
Oh.
And we finally had to come to that place, but man, we loved Porterville. I
It was
loved up
amazing
there.
people.
Yeah.
You were there for how long?
We were at the church there for a little over 5 years, and then after I left, the woman who followed me asked if I'd be on the board of the church, and so the denomination put me on the board of the church, so I was able to work with her, who actually, I was able to pray with her at district council when she was ordained. So, that's a life we were able to shape.
What would you say you guys learned in those experiences? And then you went to Marietta, where we met some amazing people. I have had a chance to kind of follow. What would you say God was doing in that time when you look back? Not maybe necessarily from the platform. What do you think he was working out in your lives and in your marriage and the ministry? Oh, he's looking at you, Taryn.
I think it was really good for us to be away from this area. We grew closer and stronger as a couple, definitely. We really clung to each other. The Lord did amazing things. Like, we thought going to Porterville, I would take a terrible pay cut as a teacher. In fact, I got a tremendous pay increase teaching there, which was crazy. I think we really grew to know how important it was to love the people and how important it was to reach out to the community. We did Toys for Tots drives. We were a great distributor for them. Distributed Thanksgiving meals. The church, the small little church in Porterville, started a skate park and impacted the community. So we saw how important that was.
So I think that was preparing you for you guys to make a full circle.
Yeah, I think so.
And
Because
now
you had a lot of
back in
challenges
the
coming
area.
here, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
So, but you were united as a couple. So you feel like that was preparation in a smaller venue for what you're doing now, would you say, Pastor?
Yeah, I believe that both Porterville and Marietta, as well as our time at Christian Life Church
That's
and
right.
Intervision Ministries, and all these things prepare us for the next step. And one of a story like this, I got a young lady she's getting ready to open up the Women's Discipleship Program, and I told her, everything you've done is being to prepare you for what you're going to do right now, and you're going to be challenged tremendously. And
That's what people don't recognize. That's why I'm glad that you're saying that. In this preparation and stuff, that when God calls us, it's not necessarily to a cupcake walk, is it?
No. Most of the time it's not, it seems
Okay.
like.
And especially if he's preparing you for something big,
Yeah.
you have to be molded. You really do.
And you have to be, like you said, grounded as a couple, close to be to stick together because of, because then Pastor Bob, he passed, right? He passed
Yes.
away.
Yeah, he passed shortly, within 4 months after we were elected, to take his spot with the church.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So you guys are now the pastors for the church, Harbor. I don't want to say it wrong. Harbor Church.
Yeah, Harbor Church.
In Lomita, which
Yes.
was a church that your brother, your uncle, and your brother-in-law helped build. Now, how does that make you feel, God bringing you full circle?
Well, frankly, neither one of us were excited about coming back to the city.
So he had kind of you given that up.
Well, yeah,
That vision, yeah.
Our heart was the Big Island of Hawaii, and we were offered a couple churches over there, and it just didn't work out. We just didn't feel like that's what we were supposed to do. But to come back to where we're at, it's really interesting because, I walk around, I look, and I see every place I grew up at. And there, and I come across people, like we went to her 20-year high school reunion, which would have been to the one that I would have,
Attended.
And they look at her and they're wondering, what in the world is she doing with him? Yeah.
And now he's a pastor.
And so, having grew up in that community and had so much stuff happen, in a way, it's a blessing to know that, okay, now I can give back something.
Oh.
But I'm still looking forward to the day of pastoring on the Big Island and doing,
That's still your
doing
heart,
bathing
huh?
suit commercials.
Oh, I see. Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
Well, and I do want to
understand that.
congratulate you guys on your 21st wedding anniversary.
Oh,
Congratulations to that 21
to
years
that.
of marriage.
Thank you.
Yes.
Through all of
Really?
the trials and tribulations.
Seems like 40.
I hope that people, in hearing the story, because I know we're going to wrap it up soon, that there's nothing impossible with God, no matter
There
what you
really
do.
isn't.
And some parents, I think they get overwhelmed that they don't see their kids going a certain path, and they feel like they got to do something. This should be a testimony for
Yes.
God
I want to
when he-
control and manipulate my
you.
daughter.
When he has his hands on somebody's life, he does not let
right.
go. And how he can bring something so beautiful out of things that don't make sense to us. This story does not make sense, but it
If you
makes
were to
all the
look
sense
at
in
it-
Jesus.
Exactly. If you were to look at the story,
Mhm.
people would be, wow, this is not going in a good direction.
No.
If you look at it now, how God had his hand in it. And when we close out the show, we always like to ask, what does joy in my house mean to you? And we'll start with Taryn. Through all the trials and tribulations, what does joy in my house mean to you today?
I think it means that you can have joy in all seasons of your life, no matter what you're going through. I think it means that you can rejoice in the Lord because He is good, He is faithful, He is loving. He has saved me, so I can rejoice in that and have joy in that despite circumstances.
Wow.
And it doesn't mean it's easy,
Right.
but we can always have joy in Him.
That's beautiful. Pastor?
Well, I'd say something very similar, because I believe that a lot of times we look at joy and happiness and things like that, and what we need to realize is that our situation, our circumstances can't control whether we're going to be happy or whether we're going to be joyful. We have to reach beyond our circumstances, and just because of who God is, and realize, you know what, this is my circumstances today. But boy, tomorrow's going to be exciting. Tomorrow there's a blessing coming. And so you keep, and you know what I found? A lot of times those circumstances turned out to be a blessing also. So, that's the joy in God's house, is each day. It's not dictated by your circumstances, but by the fact that God loves you.
Amen.
That
That's
God loves
beautifully
you.
said.
So-
Beautifully said. Thank you guys. I love you. Thank you, Josie
Taryn.
and John. And I forgot the little
Pastor
one's
Phil.
name.
Jasmine.
Jasmine.
Pastor Phil, thank you guys for coming on the
Thank
show. We hope many blessings on your church. This is Joy in My House, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to join us next week. We're going to have a Christian rapper by the name of Malik Thomas on the show from Las Vegas. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joy in My House. You guys have a blessed day.
Love you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Van Eric.
God
Bye.
bless ya.